Hello, this is Madan. In this video, we are going to add a relationship between our model classes, and the type of relationship we are working is one-to-many relationship. So in this demo, we are going to add one-to-many relationship between our pet and application user model. So let us assume that our application user can have more than one pets at a given point of time, and a pet can only belongs to only one user at a given point of time. That means that no any one single pet can have more than one owners or the application user at a given point of time. So to do that, what we can do is we can define a property here, and we can say that our application user can have a list of pet. Let's give it a name of pairs, and let's head over to our pet class, and let's tell the pet class that it can have an application user prop and application user of type, and let's give it a name of users. And what this tells is that our pet can have only one application user, that is no single pet can belong to multiple owners at a given point of time, and our application user can have a list of pets or more than one pets, and the application user can own more than one pet at a given point of time. And in order to apply changes and establish relationship in our corresponding database tables, we need to define a foreign key property here. So what we can do is define a property of user ID. This is the singular one, so let's remove the s from here. User, and this user and user should match, these two names should exactly match with each other, and this id is the id of this application user table, which is ASP.NET users in the database table. So, and the ASP.NET Identity Framework defines the id of application user as a string, so we need to define the type of this field as a string. With this, our relationship is ready to go. And there is one more thing we can do. We can explicitly tell Entity Framework how our relationship should behave and how our foreign key in the relationship should accept our data. That means we can tell Entity Framework that we can make our foreign key a required field or an optional field. So which means we can define whether or not we can create a pet without the user. So to do that, we can use the builder parameter that is passed to this method, and we can say builder.entity, and this is a generic class that takes the generic parameter. So we are going to establish the relationship between our application user and pet class. So we can say builder.entity application user, and it can have many pets. P goes to p dot pets, and our pet can have only one owner or the application user at a given point of time. So u goes to u dot user, and there is a foreign key user id. We can make that foreign key a compulsory required one. That means no pet can be created without user id by adding is required at the end of the statement. And these properties, the pets and the users, are coming from the pets is coming from the pets property of the application user, and this user is coming from the user navigation property from the pet class. So at this point of time, we should be able to generate our migration. So let's go to the terminal, and let's tell Entity Framework to generate the migrations. Add migrations, it should be migrations add .NET EF migrations add relationship between pet and application user. You can give any name here that makes sense to you. It's gonna take a while, so hope it's working on. And it has successfully generated the migration, and we can confirm it by navigating to the our recently generated migrations inside the data migrations folder. And at this point of time, if we run this migration against the database, then it will throw an exception, because we have told entity framework that we cannot create a pet without the user ID, but in our database table there are already records that doesn't have user ID. There are already our pairs that doesn't have user ID. So if we do select star from pairs, then these are the pairs that we created earlier, and these pairs doesn't have any user ID. So at this point of time, if we run our migration against the database, it should throw some kind of error. So let's try to run the migration against the database. .NET EF database update. To see what's going behind the scene, let's give a verbose switch. And our migration failed because it says that they cannot add or update a child row. A foreign key constraint fails. So in order to make this work, what we can do is we can first remove all those records that doesn't have user ID. So let's delete those records from database table first. Delete pairs. Delete from pairs. And so we have no pairs right at the moment. Let's again try to run the migration. And at this point of time, the error was gone, but it says that the duplicate column name user ID. This is because when we run the migration for the first time, it added the user ID field to the database, and then later it failed because the user ID field was empty for all of those records. So what we can do is we can see describe pairs, and the user ID is already there. So we can remove this user ID from database here. What we can do is alter table name, alter pairs, drop column user ID. I made an error, looks like I made an error. Alter table pairs, drop column user ID. And we have successfully removed user ID at this point of time. And we can, if we try to select the data from the pairs table, select star from pairs, then we have none of the pairs there in the database table, and we have got no user ID. So now if we update the database with the latest migration, it should work this time. And our migration has successfully updated against the database. Now if we go to the database and do describe pairs, then we can see the user ID, and the MUL it represents that it is a foreign key, and this foreign key is coming from the table corresponding to the application user model, which is ASP.NET user tables, and the user ID cannot be null. This is because we have defined here the user ID should be required. The foreign key is a required field, so our database table in our database table uh, our user ID has become a required field here. So now at this point of time, if we run our application, let's refresh this. So we have no pairs right at the moment. So if we go to pair/new, pair/new, and if we try to add a pet at this point of time, then it doesn't work because we don't have user ID. So let's try to save, and it says that the error, the pet could not be created because now our pet cannot be created without the user ID. So this is the end of the demo, and in the following video we will add the user ID to the pairs and continue improving our MVC application. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.